Special workshop, Destin City Council, February 23, 2023. Annex City Council, 6 o'clock. Joe's Bayou Recreational Area Improvement Project. Sorry, I just call it the boat ramp. I'll call this meeting to order. All right, up first, we're going to do the invocation.
Do we have someone to do the prayer?
Oh, I don't think so. All right, so if everyone will just please stand and take a moment of silence. All right, thank you.
Join me with your hand of your heart. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you so much. All right, so up first, before we get into the workshop, we're going to do public comments. So this is the first of two opportunities for anyone to come up here and give us any kind of thoughts or comments or opinions before we begin, and then afterwards, we will then allow you guys to come back up after you've heard the discussions in the workshop to give final closure opinions. At this point, I'm going to go from my right to left, so anyone here want to give public? Yep. You have 3 minutes. Please say your first and last name and address, and make sure the light's on. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Nikki Johnson, 3710 First Street. I have a lot of stuff to bring forward, so I'm only going to kind of touch on it right now, and I would just like to say that I strongly agree with your point 6 and everything you had to say after it about maintaining the natural state in what we have available, and what I think has been proposed is the exact opposite. We are paving over a last waterfront piece of property. And I would also like to know how it became so far from what was proposed before, where it was completely left in its natural state, and even each of the goals of the grant that we got the money, like you're talking about, every detail in this grant, none of it has anything to do with paving it all over to make additional parking. We said from the get-go we did not want additional parking there. The Parks and Recreation Committee from the get-go, no extra parking. If we have extra parking, it needs to go south of Beach. We could pave that area between the two parking lots, lose those few trees that are there, make that parking, but you don't take the last waterfront piece of property and make it parking. You make it a park, you make it so we can enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, up next, come on up. Nope. Anyone middle row? Come on up. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Jay Howard. Hello, I'm Jay Howard. I've lived on Joe's Bayou my entire life, and I would say it feels similar. I don't, without seeing it on the map, I think you're probably taking a resource that would be better used for the citizens and the pedestrians to use the park in the waterfront rather than put the boat slips for the trailers, the parking spots for the trailers there. I would say there's probably 4 weekends out of the year where it fills up currently, so I don't want to waste any more time, but I do feel that would be a good use, is to actually use more of the space for a park rather than for boat trailer parking. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? All right, seeing none, I'm going to be closing the public comments at this time, and we will begin the workshop. All right. So I'm going to be going off. I hope everyone's got one of these, and we'll have some PowerPoints, I believe, that'll hopefully follow along. But I'm just going to give a kind of brief overview of the presentation that was at the last committee meeting that I was at, and then we'll go into the map. And I think at that point, we just really wanted to get the council's opinions and perspectives of this, since we cannot do so due to sunshine law. So Joe's Bayou to me has always been a place where I've gone and recreated. I've always launched some other my friends' boats there. I've never had the privilege of having my own boat there, but I've definitely launched several boats from the area. I know we've had several conversations of what the place would look like, and to some other of these comments, I think as as much as we can to preserve nature and to keep that in the forefront of it all. Some of the things that are going to be improved or proposed improvements as of it's planned right now are the existing boat ramp and pier will be upgraded. There is going to be breakwaters and the hardscape removed from the water line. I think that's one of my biggest excitements is being able to use that as bay access. Right now with all the concrete and barnacles there, you're really not able to get into the water safely, in my opinion. The improved nature trails and the viewing areas will be great, and the wetland enhancements, and to get rid of all the all of the invasive species to allow our native plants, bushes, and trees to thrive. Lighting, landscaping, irrigation, and park amenities will be there, as well as one thing I wanted to bring up is kind of what we can do there for our code department. Speaking to our code department, I think they would be very excited to have their harbor master station there and potentially have a boat lift there. I think right now we are just having a partnership agreement with a private entity. So I know that is one of our access points for rogue vessels when it comes to some of the pontoon and delivery vessels that are operating illegally inside the city limits. And this is one of the main areas where they would get in and get operating. So I think providing security for our code, putting some cameras there is something that I'm going to be very wanting to see in the final proposal. So as of right now, there is a total allocated $12,202,000 and roughly some change, and that goes to the administration, the engineering, and construction. So that is a out-the-door price of what we have to work with. And then with that, we're going to go right into the map. And I'm going to go down the row here and see if you guys have any initial thoughts, and we can just kind of start a open dialogue on this. So, Councilman Bagby.
Are the consultants gonna make any of this presentation, or are we just gonna have a?
I think he's here just to hear us out in person and do due diligence, and then he's going to be here at the next council meeting or next month, and then he's going to have his own presentation for us at the council.
Yeah, and this is one of those coming in at the end, well, coming in at the very beginning and then coming in at the end type things. But I kind of agree with everybody. I don't, and I know it was a concrete plant. I got that, okay? And there was concrete there, so returning it to its natural state, its natural state when I moved here 24 years ago was well, the concrete plant wasn't there, but the slab was there. So, but what were our objectives? I thought our objectives were to have a park, not a parking lot. And so I guess I'd like the consultant to go, because I thought we were going to come up, I mean, I knew we were going to have some parking, but I thought we would come up with something a little bit different. I'm just kind of curious how we got here. How many parking spots is that? Because it looks like a lot of parking spots. It looks more than 63. It looks like 63 pull-throughs, and I see other parking spots, so I'm just curious. Can somebody tell me how we got here? Yeah, come on.
Please, yeah,
up.
for
Come
just
on
give us
up.
some facts.
I kind of thought you would
I
go
was
through
gonna,
the slides.
yeah, I was gonna come through
Lance,
your
can I get a
PowerPoint here.
Lance, can I get a map, please?
Yeah, so take it away. You got it. Yep.
All right, my name's Pierce Barrett. I'm a professional engineer with the Department of Environmental Protection. I am the engineer overseeing the projects that came out of the BP oil spill. It's called the Deepwater Horizon Program. Anyway, as you know, Destin has been the recipient of 3 projects that I've personally been involved with. One was a small sediment control structure placed down at the harbor. That was the first one. And then there's the Noriega Point, which is the second big project. And then you're also the recipient, which is part of our program, of the Captain Destin Park over there on the bay. What you're looking at may appear to you, and there's an aerial photo we'll show you in a minute, but to not make it misleading, there's actually less parking there now, I mean, in this picture you see up there, than there is out there at Joe's Bayou at this moment. So while that looks like a lot, that area to the right side of the screen that's a parking lot is basically the area that is currently a parking lot. The area of the old CEMEX plant is where you see the small oval. There right now is very little parking at that park for regular vehicles. And that's what you see over there, some improvements. That's for vehicles that may bring a lot of kayaks don't require a trailer. You can top load them on your truck or you can put them in the back of a pickup. But that's for that area with the sort of the oval in it. That's what that is. So don't let that mislead you. There's actually less parking there now in this picture than there is out there now.
And I guess this is a staff question, do we think this is gonna all be paid parking?
We have not discussed that level. We have talked about it, but, if you launch a boat, it's basically paid parking. So the question comes, what about other parking? Does that make sense?
Well, because it's not just boat launching,
Correct.
okay? It's a park, so, and I think we're gonna have this conversation somewhere in the near future about, are we charging a fair amount to launch your boat? Okay, whether you're a citizen or not a citizen, so I guess my question is, where are we in our discussions on that? Because your answer leads me to believe, oh, well, they're gonna pay to launch their boat, so they get to park their truck and their trailer. Okay, well, how about the people that don't bring a truck and trailer? How about the people that just have their kayaks or their, YOLO boards or whatever on their truck or their SUV? Are they gonna pay?
So there has been no real conversation beyond what the current rules are, which is just as you just said, which is if there's individual parking there, there is no fee for that I'm aware of. Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong on that.
But aren't we going to change our fee schedule of parking here very quickly on the next, March meeting? So we can get ahead of the spring break and the parking and all the updates that we need to make and put in place, correct?
That is correct.
Anything else?
Yeah, this is
Open score, yep.
Yeah, it's not a boom, 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 it's
Fair
like-
enough, you're already training me.
Yeah. It's a workshop, so, so I guess my next question is, did the Parks and Rec Committee approve this as designed or as presented? That's okay. It's fine with me, yeah, I mean,
I
Mr.
would-
Mayor,
I'd
can
prefer
the
just-
chair of the Parks and Rec Committee, are you still the
Absolutely.
chair?
Yep.
Some days I get confused on who's,
This was presented to us as a 30% drawing, so we made suggestions. And our mayor was there, and so was Councilman Sweetser was there. And we made some suggestions, small tweaks that wouldn't really cost a ton of money to redesign the whole thing. Simple things like there are no LSV parking, but yet we're allowing LSVs now in the city, so I think we've overlooked that little piece. And we talked about, some of our committee wanted dogs, and I'm great with dogs. I just don't want them with my 2-year-old granddaughter and a big dog because she's afraid of big dogs, even though she owns one. She's afraid of them. So we talked about maybe looking at part of it being where dogs could be and part of it being where people or small children could be. So there was a separation there. Those kinds of suggestions were made. I thought you might even have the minutes of that meeting with the suggestions. I don't know. But since it was only 30%, they did tell us they were going to present it in a workshop. So we just made minor suggestions at that particular point.
So Sandy, looking at this, where the loop is, where the current parking, if you go down there where they've kind of got the loop in place now because the pavement is there, the tar part of the road. When you're going through that section that says, you know, Joe's Bayou parking overflow, it's right there, and then you've got like the loop. A lot of trucks and trailers back into the grass. Is the grass the white right now behind those parking spots that are being in the drawing? Or are they
My
going?
understanding is the white is sidewalk.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying, is that all of that overflow of grass and weeds and stuff where the trailers are currently backing in will all be completely flattened and be made into like a sidewalk that will skirt around the parking. Is that what that is?
I'm not, can you give me a number so I'm not
9,
exact?
look at number 9,
Number 9.
right dead center. It's on top of one of the handicap spots.
Okay. My understanding is those are going to be pull-off parking spaces for patrons who are using the park, not necessarily boat people.
Gotcha, okay.
Now, I don't know, my suggestion was to make some of those LSV spots, because that's where you'd want to be, and an LSV is closer to the park anyway. We did make the suggestion that item 14, which is now the current building that's there, I call it the ticket takers.
Yep,
building,
yep.
Remain because it has a bathroom, and those exiting their boat would want to use the restroom close by, not
Right.
walk over to number 13.
Where it's on the other side of
In
it,
the,
correct?
yeah, the other side of the parking lot. But that was one of the suggestions that we made, and to look at them creating down where number 5 and 28 are as large as possible, this beach for people to go in and out. But yes, down where number 2 is, those spaces are a little bit longer, according to what we were told, so that a big truck with pulling a 24-foot trailer could pull in there without hanging out somewhere in the road. Does that make sense? In the pathway. The gentleman, and I cannot remember his name, but the gentleman who lives right at the end where the word draft is, right in the first house, he actually came to our meeting and was in tears at the end of it. He said this is the best thing he's seen designed since he's lived here since the 50s. So he was all for the way it was currently designed.
Okay, so the current design for the parking of the oval, those spots, it looks like there's maybe 20-ish. Are they 60 feet in length for the truck and trailer
No, they are
combination?
not. That oval, that teardrop, I call it,
Yeah.
is only for cars.
So those won't, that is, the current overflow lot will only be for cars to park to go to the park.
Yes.
Okay, Ned, the oval and the teardrop. 2 is which one are you calling which? Because that looks like it is for trucks and trailers, whereas number 9 looks like it is not.
Number 2 is for trucks and trailers.
Okay.
Number 9 is not.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm,
The number 2, which is across, all of that will be paved where it's currently rock, right? And then it would be set up where they're painted to be the 60-foot trailer combination truck
Yes.
trailer? And
Wait.
how many of those spots there? Is that 60 there?
How many do we have in there? Pierce? I don't remember the
64.
number.
in number 1 or number 2, 7. 11 spaces,
In number 2?
11 and 7.
2, 4, 6, 8. There's
Okay, I see that.
About 15, 16 spaces in number 2 there, because both are pull in, pull out.
All right, in number 1, the main lot that's currently the Joe's Bayou parking lot, it said there's 44 spaces. What, does that mean that's going to be completely flattened, remove all those junk trees that are in there and make it all parking so that it would accommodate 60-foot truck-trailer combination?
Yes, and there's 64 spaces in that piece, according to the legend.
And in that 64 spaces, are they that long? Are they 60 feet
The
in length?
spaces, the design of the new parking lot is to accommodate the new style trucks and trailers. And yes, it would be striped and, designated. The parking on the south side of the street in the Matty Kelly area, We did put some truck spaces over there to accommodate some of that overflow you see different times of the year, but also note in there is the parking spaces for single vehicles only as well.
Well, a lot of the boats that are currently truck trailer down there, like the smaller boats or the jet ski boats, they're not the length of 60 feet. And a lot of those as you're coming through the Joe's Bayou, you launch your boat and you pull out that last, all against that fencing, there are those short boat truck trailer combinations. Are those going to be encouraged to be across the street in the newer acquisition of parking?
It can be. So that's just what you're doing, is putting out suggestions or things you'd like to have looked at, and that's what stage we're at. That's what I'm saying. This was the 30% conceptual designs presented at the Parks and Rec, and then, as you well know, we're coming back on the 16th with revisions to the presentation made at Parks and Rec, addressing some of the comments that Ms. Trammell and her crew gave to us, and then, either, I won't say rebut those comments, but if we feel that those need to be reconsidered, we will, or they'll be incorporated into the plan. Now, I want to make clear, though, anything you do with operations of the park facility is outside of our scope. So whether it's a dog park or not dogs, right now you've got signs up say no dogs. All that is outside of us. So that's an internal thing you decide upon. Whatever you feel like charging, whether you charge for boats and trailers, you don't charge, whatever, that's all the city decision. So
I just want to make sure that when we have those truck trailer combinations put together, that it is specified where they can park, because we do have a boat and a truck, and we do carry, it's 60 feet in length. And last summer, I will tell you right now, we went out every Saturday and Sunday from May till like October, and that overflow parking lot was full of 60-foot vehicles and trailer combinations. And most of them were backed into the grass area because, the length of that park wasn't conducive or painted or set up for it. So a lot of people just sort of park next to each other into the grass. So the new lot, making sure that it is specified for that and painted to that, that's what I'm trying to find out. So we will be able to accommodate the 66 vehicle combinations that we get during the summer in that new.
If it's a smaller boat and trailer, if it's a single axle boat and trailer, you can park in there too, as far as being able to get in. But it's to accommodate what I've seen out there lately, where you're talking about the biggest boats you can get on a trailer, I guess, or what now. You're a boater, you're better than I am, but usually it's close to around 30, 32 feet. There's some of them that come in there. If they get much bigger than that, I don't know what you can do about it. But they come in some of them on a triple axle, extended cab pickup truck. That's what these spaces are designed for. The turning radiuses are designed for that. Everything is designed to meet the current usage.
And that's what I just want to make sure that we're mindful of. We don't have little tiny trucks and small boats anymore. People just don't buy those. There's a lot that we still have there, maybe 15 or 20 of them that are more of a jet ski. But to make sure that we can accommodate the length of what currently is there before we end up saying, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to have our nice park, beachfront, put, benches there so people can enjoy the sunset, make that, whether it's park dog, park, but also having accommodating parking spaces and then boat, trailer, truck parking at the Joe's Bayou parking lot that's being redone.
And just to clarify, we'll go into far more detail on how the designs and so forth came. As you know, I'm here tonight. I don't have our whole team. It takes a team to do things nowadays. You can't go to the hospital and get something sewn up without 5 doctors. Well, it's the same way. You can't have just one engineer. But we'll fully discuss some of the questions that came up at the Parks and Rec Committee and things, and we'll discuss, how does this design of the park to accommodate the vehicles you're talking about? How are the turning radiuses more accommodating for those type vehicles? How are the boat ramps more accommodating? Because you may have 5 ramps out there now, but not 5 of them can launch every boat that comes to that facility.
Pier 4 and 5 can launch those that are the 60 feet in length. They usually have to wait. Everyone else can launch at the smaller, shallower piers.
And also, we're not designing or can't design for the the peak weekend to accommodate everybody that comes. That's why I said a minute ago, there's actually less parking spaces. It was over here a week ago, I went out there on a weekday to look at the site again. I hadn't been out there myself in a couple of months. And there was 2 boats and trailers, or 2 trailers and vehicles out there that day. The whole place was empty. So,
Is that February you're talking about?
yeah, but it was a very pretty day. It was 77
Yep, nobody can
degrees.
get in the water on a pretty day in February.
Well, needless to say, if we try to make the whole thing just to accommodate the 4th of July, Memorial Day weekend, et cetera, you're not going to do it, or you're going to do as the gentleman said a minute ago about providing this park for more uses than just a boat ramp. That's what we've tried to do. It is now, going back with your current city manager when he was Parks and Rec director, he and I walking the site some years ago, looking at it and what some of his vision was. That's sort of what the stipulations that are built around this funding are based on, is not just boating access, but access for everybody else to the park in its area. So we've tried to open that up and provide green space for that, viewing for that, et cetera.
I think, if you don't mind me chiming in real quick, because I think I understand Councilwoman Abear's concern. And I think from a park management standpoint, we can do what you're wanting, because our staff can direct the single axles to fill in the small parking places first before they would go and take over one of the larger ones. So I think we can handle that internally.
I know that like July 4th, Memorial Day, Labor Day, I mean, it's going to be 150% full. I mean, last year when it was, we would launch and then I'd drive the truck and trailer back to my house, run down to Main Street. He'd pull around from Joe's Bayou to Main Street. I'd jump on our boat, and that's how I got out. So we realized we can't accommodate for the 4 busiest weekends of the season, but I want to be mindful that we do have a lot of larger combinations, and I don't want to, cut our nose off to spite our face. I mean, we want the park. We want to be able to add in some dog park. I think that's a brilliant idea, put a little dog park and park. But we want to also accommodate what we need initially. There is the size of that lot to be partitioned for the 60 feet in length.
The other thing regarding that is all of those, he was telling us that there will be 4 boat launches, as there are now, but every one of them will accommodate the big boats. Yes, because they're going to eke that out and do that.
Dredge it, is that what we're talking about?
Well, I don't know if he said dredge, but he said make it so they could all launch.
Great,
And
that's
that's what I'm
awesome.
looking for.
That's great.
Do you have a question for me?
I'm patiently waiting. No, how many, no, I'm messing with you. How many spots are there currently in the number 1, like where there's going to be 64 spaces? How many spots are there currently right now? The only reason I ask, and I'm not trying to make waves here, but it seems like if we've, and I get that, I get that guidelines and specs are different now than they were when Joe's Bayou was originally built. But I know that has been a concern, and I think I'll be curious to see how that is, what we have here now is less space. So that would be my first question along with everybody else. Is there, I don't know if any of y'all have ever been to Port St. Joe for scallop season. Their season's 60 days long. And at the city marina, they do whatever it takes. That's their number one, this is their number one, the draw. Yeah, this is the draw to go to Port St. Joe for most people. And on opening day of scallop season, it's like the fourth, and any Saturday and Sunday during scallop season, it's like the 4th of July at Joe's Bayou Boat Ramp. But they have green space where they've organized places for people to park trailers. My question would be, is there an option to do such a thing to where we can keep, the northern side of the big parking lot? Is there a way to keep that green to make everybody happy and still accommodate on the busy weekends? That's just a thought. Also, just one other thing that I have, and this is kind of switching gears a little bit, but is there any way, is this the place in time where we need to talk about putting in a wash down?
Yeah, I'm about to talk about that.
Yes, I mean, it's a huge need. I mean, people, you know, on a busy weekend, you're not gonna be able to accommodate everybody, but I launched, I don't near as much now, but when I was single, I launched boats a lot. You know, I would take my boat 3 or 4 times a week fishing, a lot of times out of Joe's Bayou, and it just makes everything easier, especially when nobody's there and you can take your time, you can flush your motor, you can wash your boat, you know. I think it's a must. I think it's something that we gotta have.
Yeah, I don't know if the spacing accommodates for that, but where 11 is, as far as, I think it's like staff and security parking, I don't think we have that much security in the city to accommodate that much parking. So I don't know if that would be a place to do the wash downs and just have 2 or 3 parking spaces for that staff security. Because I don't know if we've looked into what that staffing would look like, but I can't imagine more than, you know, a Park and Recs, the Joe's Bayou guy who's kind of ticketing, and then potentially, you know, if we're gonna do a harbor master here, and that's something I really want to pull for, because I really want to equip our code enforcement to really be able to do their job. So I really would love to see, even if half the time it's an emblem on the building there at, oh, I just wrote over it, where the pavilion is now. I would love to, 14, I would love to see that kind of almost pavilion plus code enforcement office, if you will, to where we really have that harbor master presence there. Even if he's out on the boat, it looks like that is their outpost, and really to just show visual force of probably shouldn't be doing illegal business next to.
With cameras. I think
Yeah,
there's
with cameras, yeah,
now, too,
absolutely, because that's what's really going to help us hold down and keep people accountable.
It's kept me honest.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll come back. So now that I understand, it's only the 30% plan. Okay, yeah, okay, cool. So, a couple of things that I need to see as we progress along. Safety and drainage. Okay, so on the safety aspect, I think you've done a fair job, but you've got to separate, you've got 4 constituents, for lack of a better term. You've got the pedestrians, okay, so that they can walk. You've got the people in the non-motorized, whether it be a YOLO board or a whatever, paddle board, whatever they're going to do. Then you got the people in the jet skis, the lightly motorized or the smaller boats, and then you got the bigger boats that everybody's, you know, wanting to make sure they can get in the water. But you have to keep those segregated so that your big boats and your jet skis aren't pulling up, you know, creating a wash or a wave or anything where the people are trying to do their YOLO board or they're trying to get out there in the water and just wade in the water. So my concern is I see up at 25, I think, is where your jet skis, is that where?
25 is paddle craft only.
24, I'm sorry, is where your jet skis are launching, right?
Jet skis,
And then you're also loading them at 25.
no, 25 is simply an ADA accessible kayak launch. It's for paddlecraft, paddle boards, kayaks, canoes, whatever comes under the term of paddlecraft, for non-motorized use only. That is away from the regular boats, and it isolates the current. It says no swimming out there now, but I know people do swim at that beach. I've seen it. But your signage does say no swimming. But as you can see, the pier with the L shape to it somewhat prevents boats from coming, or jet skis from coming into that quiescent zone right there. That L-shaped pier would be for boats that are waiting to, say, get out of the water or to pick passengers up or whatever, but it takes.
So what do you think is mooring at number 3?
At number 3, that is mooring thought of for boats coming in And some of this stuff, I will say, it's whether or not the budget will allow it. But that
Okay.
is to allow boats to come in, that say, come in off of the water that don't have a truck and trailer. They come into the park for whatever reason, whether to use the restrooms or to moor there to pick up passengers or whatever. That's the intent of that dock you see out there at the end.
So that's my concern is you have the non-motorized at 25, right? You got the motorized at 3, and then, of course, you got the motorized over at 12 and 24. So you're putting the non-motorized in between the two motorized. Now, you got that the people are over on the west-hand side, and that, that's where they need to be.
You've got a good point, Councilman. I think I'll definitely take that back. to have a little
Don't
bit.
say that out loud, because there's 100 people in this room who disagree with you. But the other thing I would say so all I want you to do is go back and re-look and make sure we know where the boats are going to be, where the jet skis are going to be, where the people are going to be, where the YOLO boards or whatever are going to be, and we don't cross them or mix them. The other thing is on the drainage, because the mayor's a big proponent of green, sustainable environment, and some days I am, okay? But what, are we using open pavers or rock, or we're just paving? What's our thinking, I guess, right now?
For the final decision on the finish to the pavement, right now it's being considered as that would be typical asphalt paving where it's being paved. Now, pavers can be used. Does the city have the equipment to clean them?
Well, I'm talking about open pavers.
That's still,
Open pavers, the grass grows through.
they-
Dewey's not here to keep me straight.
my experience has been with pavers, whether they're open block like you're talking about, or with the perforated perforated paving. It looks like concrete, but it's perforated. And I have built a boating facility in this program over in Pensacola that's completely out of that material. And it's expensive. It's still more expensive. And you also have to have equipment to be able to come in and, quote, vacuum the area. Because they will fill in with small sediment and so forth over a period of time, and they won't serve their purpose of being perforated. They won't allow infiltration.
You
through
can
it.
park on open pavers. They have grass. I mean, there are a lot of places in this area that have open pavers that grass is grown in and they're parking on it. But tonight's not the night for that
No,
conversation.
but I'll take your comments, will go back to my team, and we'll come back with a response at the 6th.
And so we used to have a very bad drainage problem on the other side of beach. I mean, it was wetlands, basically. That's what it was. And it still is a wetlands. I'm not going to get in an argument here, but I still think I would call it a wetlands, period. So I want us to be very careful about our drainage and where we're putting our parking and how we're draining that parking, because a couple of things. Number one, I don't want all this pavement with all these oils and stuff going straight out to the bay that we're trying to give people access to and trying to fix. So I don't know how we're going to treat it. I don't know retention ponds, or we're going to do all these weirs, or how you going to do that. But I'm going to ask that question when y'all come back. So when you bring it back, because that water's got to be treated before it goes to the bay.
You're
Somehow.
absolutely correct, and the agency I work for has the stormwater permitting process that will completely be reviewed in that part of our agency. We can't permit it to drain directly into the open water. You're correct. All that area on the other side called Mattie Kelly Park, that is a jurisdictional wetland.
Yes, it is.
We've had it mapped and it's designated on the plan so that, building cannot go into those areas. But any stormwater associated with the redevelopment of the park will be properly treated, it therefore won't get a permit.
Okay,
And the primary treatment now will be in the unpermitted, there's that blue area is actually an existing pond. It's unpermitted. It was never permitted. It was built before permitting of stormwater structures was part of our system. But that pond is to be cleaned up, reused as a stormwater facility to treat the stormwater that's currently running into it, plus any more new that's created. And in that pond, it'll have to meet certain standards before it leaves. We've already talked to DEP about this. Before any water discharges out of that pond, it has to meet certain water quality. It'll be tested regularly, meet water
Okay.
quality standards before it goes out into the bay.
okay. And then the last point I would make that I want, because I agree with the washout, I agree that's a great idea. And I've been to Port St. Joe and I've been to Cedar Key. And you want to talk about a parking lot, go out to Cedar Key. But the thing is, on that, wherever I go back to my point number 2, wherever that drains to has to be treated, because that is the worst of the water that's going to be on this site. When those guys start, pulling their plugs. And so while I agree, that's a great idea, and that wouldn't bother me for it to be there, as long as it's sustainable, then you'll get my vote. But if it looks like, okay, we got 800 people here pouring all their oil and gas and mixed fluids into this thing, and we don't really have other than a retention pond treating it, that's probably not my preference. Thank you.
And when you clarified that number 3 was just a new mooring dock for people that didn't have a boat and a trailer, all I thought was that's access for the rogue operators to be out there unseen. I'd say delete that piece from the project, save us that piece of money, because we don't need any invitational opportunities that makes it easy for them to kind of hide from code compliance, because they're way out there waiting on their customers to come get on their rogue operation.
While we're on 3, is that going to be the pump out station as well, if we were to have one?
Well, that's where they're proposed.
Okay, that's the,
You're talking the pump out versus the washout. The wash is a completely different facility.
yeah, no, I'm saying,
Okay.
your brown water.
But the pump out, and, I'll bring up a point that was brought up to me earlier tonight before the meeting started by someone who was very knowledgeable about it. She'd done her research. The system that treats the wastewater, destined water users, doesn't accept stuff that comes from boat pump outs, portalets, that type. It's the same type of waste as, and I've spent many years in the wastewater industry, so I know what you have to do to pre-treat this stuff. But that's a chemical waste. It's got a lot of chemicals in it, so you can't just put it in a wastewater plant. That's why destined water users won't accept it, I'm sure. So
Sounds like we're not
that's
having
another
one.
cost that the city will have as an operational cost, is the disposal of that pump out waste. And wash facilities, some of my experience has been at big boat ramps. They're used if a boater has the time to get on it and use it. But if it's a peak weekend period, he isn't sitting there. When he leaves that water, he isn't sitting around.
No, I
washing
agree.
it
I
up.
think we should close it off and just not even give people an ability.
I'm not proposing a washout for peak season.
Yeah.
I'm proposing it as a
Nice to have.
A
as a
residential
luxury
season.
for people who are launching in September to go kill flounders. You know what I mean? Like, or whatever, what have you. I'm not talking about 4th of July weekend. It's going to be useless during those times, but.
And then something I brought up at the committee that I was looking at, and, we see this map, but if you were to zoom out, so we're talking about 3, but right next to it, 26, that's kind of like a viewing corridor. As it's posed right now, unlike 13, which is the pavilion, and how it's kind of viewing, right now, if you were to sit at 26, you're looking just across the bay at someone's backyard. So just to bring that over to the left side and kind of give it the same kind of viewing corridor that 13's doing, and that's kind of going that westerly look and kind of out into the bay versus across the bayou into someone's backyard as far as a viewing corridor. So I just wanted to throw that up since I said that last time.
Can I just say real quick, I think just as on Miss Aber's comment about, I don't know about I would like to hear y'all's thoughts. I don't know about deleting it as a whole. I mean, rogue operators they're gonna do the rogue operator thing regardless of what kind of amenities you provide them. I think if it's, regardless of whether it's used for mooring or viewing, or the more space we can get over the top of Joe's Bayou, the better, I think.
Well, I think to Councilman Bagby's point, if the non-motorized is in the middle right now, I mean, that dock could potentially be the non-motorized, and you launch from the inside of the dock, and that would give you some blockage. Other than that, the only thing kind of outside the scope of this, but it really kind of connects, and it's a really small thing, and it might be internally, because I know we're going to have some like water fountains and everything, but at the 17 at the bottom there, where you would have that Mary Kelly sign originally where that 1719 is, I know a lot of people walk that beach bedding circle. It's like a nice little plus mile. So to have some kind of dog/pedestrian walking, drinking station there, I think would be just a really nice feature to kind of promote that connectivity and mobility, just because that beach drive is it's probably one of our more used sidewalks as far as walking dogs, strollers, whatever, what have you. So that's just kind of, I know that might be a very small detail that we work internally, but just to kind of throw it out here on the workshop, I would love to kind of, I think that 17 on that side would be just a good, dare I say, like a drink halfway mark for people's walk.
And like a dog with the little baggies on them like we do at Main Street. So it encourages people, if you're going to have your dog, you've got to, I see you were writing it down. So, I mean, it's something that you can look at in your plans, but I agree with the mayor. That's a nice to have for the dogs and the walkers to have a water fountain. I don't know if that's feasible out in the open.
I agree. Those are things that we haven't gone that far as to specifying specific features, and we will do that. But I'm very familiar with the feature you're talking about. I've put it in 3 or 4 other parks in our program that have both the dog little fountain at the bottom and then the person fountain at the top. And then some of them even come with a misting station so people can cool off.
Yeah, just
They're
so
not
that,
cheap, but they
Yeah.
are available.
yeah, just to make sure that if we're going to have the engineers scope it out, just to make sure that pipes are there if we're going to go that route. Yep. And then, I'm just going to ask a question, and just from a vocab standpoint, revetment, number 28, which seems to be kind of the protective shorelines. What kind of material, what does that look like? If that's like some kind of barrier, or what is that?
Is that those rocks that they put in like at Noriega Point that kind of shorted up at the end?
Yes.
Okay. So is that still able to walk on safely? Is that kind of navigable into the water for, bare feet?
It's a shore up station.
Okay, that's what I was considering, yeah. Yeah.
Just one thing, you spoke earlier that we took the walk out there, I don't know, close to 8 or 9 years ago, 7 or 8, 9 years ago, the first walk before we actually acquired the cement plant, and to come up with concepts. And I just will reiterate, and Matthew, one of our council members, is not here too, and on his behalf too, I want to reiterate that it was always our goal to maximize the open space near the water for passive recreation. And then if we needed to maximize the area on the other side of the beach for parking, we could do that. And I think it's a great idea that we could keep a lot of it grass for the majority of the year, and then with special permission of council during the busy weekends, allow parking on the grass areas, which during festivals, that happens all over the United States right now. So that would be my biggest wish, is that we maximize the open space on the water side for passive recreation.
From an AE standpoint of that, I know that obviously the handicap parking is as close as possible to the 25, the AE launch. Is there, to that point, is there a certain, I guess, distance away from things that would disqualify it from being a handicap parking space? Like, do they need to be that close? Or, I mean, could they really be almost on that south side of Beach if they're just designated handicap and you have the pathways to get out there? If we're going to take away that asphalt and that parking, are we getting into any kind of legality from ADA? Yeah.
Well, if a space is ADA, it's going to have to be permanent pavement. It's either pavement or concrete. If you look around seeing where you have ADA accessible spaces, they are solid, impervious pavement. So you don't put a gravel parking space in designated ADA.
Thank you.
Yeah, and when it comes back, Lance, if the staff could tell us how many parking spots are out there, how many long parking spots, how many short parking spots? Because I'm counting 128 in the plan, and I just want to know how many are out there now.
Just real quick, I know that we're all real, for the most part, fairly critical when it comes to this kind of thing, but I'm kind of with the neighbor. This is the neighbor that came over and was in tears on this. I think this is just, I mean, it's just such a cool thing. I think it looks great. I think, sorry for being so critical. We just wanted to be perfect for, our constituents and our friends and families and the citizens of this town. So thank you very much.
And then if we were to add some kind of boat lift for our harbor master, would that be kind of on our responsibility, or is that something we can, if we're going to take
I'm
away?
going to tell you
or
right now, that's probably not, that is not.
Not in your scope?
the Service, yeah, so.
We'll take that up later. Thank
Yeah,
you.
not if we take you out. Yeah.
I do want to say one thing. You talk about the harbor master and all that. The purpose of the design of these features, the boat ramp particular, is to be a self-service system. Very similar to one we did in Pensacola that is, I don't remember if it has as many spaces as this one does. It's just a boat ramp. I mean, several ramps, but it doesn't have the park features. But there is no harbor master, there's no boat watchman, whatever. Law enforcement comes through periodically to make sure people are parked in the right spaces, and they ticket them if they don't. But the purpose of this park is it won't require, if you've got diligent boaters, which most people around here are, they should be able to launch their boats and take them out without any direction. There should be enough. But I mean, I see the humor up there on the council, everything you don't. I'm
Would
trying
think
to
it's that
compliment
easy.
your boaters. But that's the intent. Now, you put a harbor master out there, that's your discretion.
And I guess the harbor master's not solely for the protection of this, but it's just, we kind of know some of our overlapping problems around the city and the waterways. So right now, we're kind of partnering up with a private entity to dock and house our harbor master boat. So I think, having its own home and deterring and kind of solving some of these problems that are known that we're working on with our community partners out there in the livery vessel world. I think, this would just be a good opportunity to, again, even if we just showed the enforcement of it out there, we wouldn't necessarily need that person there, but just to show that there's some kind of deterrent that, we are taking a proactive approach to stopping rogue operations in the city limits. And I can be on us, but
That would be on
that's
us to do, but that's something we want to have.
That's something I would
added.
love to see.
Right.
Yeah, we do, in the presentation made to Parks and Rec, and you will see it again, the new proposed restroom facility, which is number 13 there on the drawing, not only does it have restroom facility in it, but it also had space in there for an office.
Yeah, so that point, if we're going back to more green space, the better. I would love to see 2 pavilions, and that one's posed to really see sunrise, sunset. But yeah, I see the need and the ideology of if there's pipes there for a bathroom, to have the 2 bathrooms just for the boating community and then for the park itself. So I think we can work through that. Okay. With that, I'm going to turn it open to public comments. Yeah, I'd love to kind of hear the ones that have came up, and if the teardrop parking were to go away, does that solve or amend part of it, or is it not enough? I just kind of want to get everyone's feelings for where they're at.
Yeah, no, I really just have three closing thoughts.
Say
Nikki
your name.
Johnson, 3710 First Street. So, unfortunately, I was traveling for business, so I was not able to attend the Parks and Rec committee to see this and give my feedback there. But there are a few thoughts I would have. But one would be I would eliminate that walkover over the water. If you look on the wetland map, that is a designated wetland. And one of the big problems we have with Mattie Kelly is all of the trash that's thrown in there and the fact that you can't just go in there and get it. We can't just send somebody in there to get it because it is a wetland. And I encourage anyone to walk on that path and look at the trash in the wetlands. By putting a path over this wetland pond, all we're doing is encouraging more trash to be thrown off of there in another way that we can't get in there and clean it up. Also, as much as I appreciate the current Parks and Recreation's opinions on things, I would encourage the council to look back over the conversations of Joe's Bayou from the beginning. I'm the only Parks and Recreation committee member that was on the committee at that time that's still there now. And I would reference you to the agenda item from February 12th, 2019, where it says, also during the August 6th, 2018 City Council meeting, the Parks and Recreation Committee presented the following recommendation to council. Consensus by the committee is to recommend the city that when Joe's Bayou is expanded, that it is an on-leash dog-friendly area. Not in favor of making any of it not dog-friendly. There's very few parks in Destin that are dog-friendly, and there are none that have water access. Everywhere around us, you can take your dogs to the water. In Walton, you can get a permit. In Fort Walton, you can go to Liza Jackson. In Pensacola, they've got 2 water. We have nothing. And so I would just encourage that, look back over the minutes, look at the people that said that they wanted that area to be dog-friendly, the whole area to be dog-friendly, and to have the dogs have an area to get to the water. And then I would also just encourage council, all of you, to look up the original permit. Look up our permit application and just ask yourselves, are we meeting the goals that we put forward when we applied for this grant? Which include enhanced public access to natural resources for recreational use, such as fishing and boating with a combination of ecological restoration and creation of infrastructure access and use opportunities, to enhance recreational experiences, to promote environmental stewardship and education, to create, restore, and enhance coastal wetlands, and to restore oysterbed habitat. Nowhere in our goals did it say we need to make parking for 60-foot trailers and boats. If you talk to those people you're talking about, the ones that are, working here and barely afford to live, they're not concerned with where to park their 60-foot trucks and boats. They're concerned with where can we take our families to the water? Where can we take our dogs to the water? And now in West Destin, with the bridge closed, under the bridge, there's nowhere for us to go. We could go to Osteen, which is a trail, Noriega, which has very few parking spots, or we drive to the east end of the county. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone in the middle? Yes, sir. First, last name, address, and make sure the light's on.
Mayor, Council, my name's Micah Thompson. I live over on 516 Benning, so I'm pretty close to this. Avid boater my whole life, so I've used Joe's. It's one of our best resources in town. I love it. So when I first saw this, this overall, I know we pick at the death, maybe try to improve what we see, but this is awesome. I think it is. The one thing I want to point out, kind of had a lot what you were talking about is, these extra piers we're building out there for the boats. You have the L-shaped pier kind of there, and the extra one they're building, and he mentioned it might be for people coming in to Moore who use the park. As a boat ramp user here, what I envision is that gives us extra space when we're loading and unloading our boat. Because right now, one of the biggest backups at this place is there's nowhere to park your boat when you come in. So you have people that park along those existing piers blocking the ramp with their boat. They have nowhere else to go. You got somebody trying to go in at the same time. It's a nightmare on a busy weekend. The first thing I saw was that L shape coming out and that extra parking there. Because to me, number 3, I think it is, that's where I would say, okay, I'm by myself, or I got one person with me. I moor my boat there while I go get my trailer. I'm not blocking the ramp, because right now, we gotta have some extra. To me, that's the biggest part of this, and keeping flow, is having extra places to park your boat when you're coming in and out. So that's really, I want to point out.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. This,
Claude Newland, 4033 Indian Trail. Currently, as you know, when you go to use the ramp there in the summer, especially when it's very busy, we have the toll collector, I'll call him, who's there. And if you look at the map here, it looks like that's the pavilion at number 14.
Yes, sir.
And right now, as you know, there's a small building there. It's probably air conditioned as well. And there's also a small restroom there. So where you have one restroom sort of off to the north of the parking area, I'm just wondering, when you think about the weather and the storms we have in the summer, if I were that gentleman out there trying to collect fees, I think I'd want something besides a pavilion to sit under. So in terms of safety, that becomes a safety feature, especially with all the electrical storms we have. So if we're doing that, would we also then keep a small restroom right there? Because boaters who come in off either launching a boat or sending a boat out, often the last thing they want to do is say, get the kids and get them to the restroom.
They're leaving it
And
there,
they don't
sir.
want to walk
It is
over to
staying.
the larger one.
That's still going to be a bathroom there.
Well, okay, it just says pavilion here, so.
It's going to be can you explain exactly how much more of it?
I don't think that was their plan originally.
Yeah, the intent, the original intent, original proposal in the 30% did remove the existing structure and replace it with the new bathroom facility. I've heard at Parks and Rec, there was a comment, same comment the gentleman here has made about the need for the restroom facility to remain there at the boat launch. And this has been taken back to our team, and we are working on that to see what can happen. It will affect the current parking area you have. If that's not, that's just a pavilion that's proposed. And the original building that's out there envisioned as being gone. That's why this parking area was made, to be able to be expanded. Comment a minute ago regarding the staging areas. The new parking lot layout and so forth provides for staging areas for both boats leaving and boats coming in, so that somebody can get off the ramp, get out of the way, and then take care of taking whatever they got to get out of their boat and stuff like that. The same thing for, instead of people going, I know I'm not a big boater, but my experience over the years, going to a boat ramp and people get their boat in the water, then they decide to load it up. Or they start unloading it when they're at the ramp, and that frustrates the better or more prudent boaters when they're coming in. But that is all in this design, you'll see, and it'll be further detailed to show it to you when we have the meeting with the rest of the team on the 16th. But I have heard now two people, well, one committee and one person now, and maybe someone else also wants that existing restroom to stay. That's fine. We cannot do much with the existing. We can't really do anything with it because it doesn't meet current flood standards. So if you cannot put more than 50% improvement into a building, they won't insure it. So we're stuck with it. If you want the building, the existing, it's not going to match the new architectural style going in out there, but we will take it into consideration, and if that's the will of the people and the city council to leave that old two-room restroom facility, then that's your choice, and I have heard it.
Just a couple more quick comments. We have the large pavilion there, number 15, it looks like. And it looks to me like as we go to the various city parks, the newer parks and so forth, I see a lot of activity at the pavilions that are provided. And so I can perceive where people who are celebrating their children's birthdays and things of that sort, I'm just wondering if maybe we might consider adding a pavilion at number 27 there in that green space, if there's room there for an additional pavilion. I just throw that on the table. My last thought is that I think having a wash station is wonderful. I use that boat ramp a lot when I have to take my boat out of the water. I live on the water on the north side of Destin on Indian Trail. so I can bring my vessel back and put it on a lift and wash it down there. But everybody else, I realize, needs to wash their boat. But I foresee, especially when I use the ramps there to take my boat out or to put it in, when I do have to do that, is that especially on busy weekends, I can see a wash station being a real bottleneck if it's not properly constructed. So, everybody's going to say, I'd like to wash my boat down before I leave, but you can imagine how that's going to back up trailers and people trying to then access and put their boats in the water. So I caution you on a wash station because, as you know, we're going to have more and more busy weekends, not just on 4th of July or Memorial Weekend.
I think we could shut it down on the weekends.
Well,
Just shut it
you
down
have
on
to-
busy
there needs to be
weekends.
some measure of controlling when it is available, so that it doesn't become a bottleneck and it doesn't just shut down the operation.
All right, thank you. Yep, and then just to throw out a comment on the pavilions, I've definitely noticed, and I think even the county's kind of designing it, where if you see over at Crab Trap and everything with those pavilions, they're huge, but you'll have one family come in there and kind of just take over this whole entire, so when in doubt with these pavilions, I would say make them smaller and more than bigger than less. Yeah, I think that would just provide more families the opportunity of having their own space because they're going to make it their own space either way.
Yeah,
Ma'am, you wanna
hey,
go?
well, I want to
Yep,
say,
go ahead, please.
make a point on the washout. This idea of shutting it down for parts, I have an issue with because part of our increased fees are going to be based on what it's costing us to clean that water and keep that washout point operational, unless we're going to charge people to use it when it's open, and then now we're going to have to capture a separate collection process in that. It's almost, we're making it a little too hard. But to me, it's either there and it's for use, or it's not there and it's for use, because the cost of capturing the money to make it operational has to be paid year-round. It has to be incorporated into the one fee, the launch fee.
I'm so glad someone's always thinking about the money.
Yep.
I'm Tona Newland. Pardon me?
Did it turn it red?
I'm Tona Newland, Claude's wife. I live at 4033 Indian Trail here in Destin. And I just have more than a comment, just a comment, basically. I don't know if you have ever been to the Ross Marler Park, which is on the Sound, at the foot of the Brooks Bridge, If you have not been there, I recommend that you go there because it offers something for everybody. When you enter on the west side, they've got a short dock. We've got a short dock, and there's a little pavilion that's right next to it, which is really neat. And I love to go over there because they have something that we don't have. They have different kind of boat traffic. So if you're a photographer and you want to take pictures of tugboats and barges and power boats, it's an exciting place to be. But as you go as you're going further east, there's a series of little pavilions. And it's really great, if somebody wants to go and cook out and have a little picnic or something, it's there. Then and there's parking right along it, so if you need to get something out of your trunk, it's easy to do it. Then kind of across from it, that's where the restrooms are. And I'm going to say this, the restrooms are immaculate, and they're large. But right next to it, there is a big pavilion, so that if you've got a large family and you want to have an event, it's there, okay? And then on the, kind of like on the other side of it, like the east side, but further back, that is a playground for children. They have all kinds of little things that they can ride, and so forth and so on. So that takes care, of young families. And then as you go further east, that's where you come to the parking lot and their boat launch, and then they have another restroom down there. But it's kind of interesting the way it flows, but it does offer something for everybody. And so I just recommend that, before you finalize everything, go check it out.
I think we got a few coming. All All right, Bill, first
Bill
and last
Mc-
name.
Bill McKissick, 151 Calhoun, and a definite avid boater in the boating business. So I'm looking at the drawings. We'll now have 4 launches instead of 5, is that correct?
Correct, yeah, because you'll be able to put 2 boats in on both water.
On both slips. And what is on the far east side of that? It looks like there's a dock. Is that for mooring? Or, I'm thinking that would be a great place to put the boat that you're talking about, Bobby, for them on the far
On the outside
right-hand side
shoulder?
over there.
Yeah.
If there's room on that side. And then as far as the washdowns, where the exit ramp is, where it's staging for loading and leaving, if it's set up with 2 ramps leaving, two drives leaving, because you got four lanes leaving from the boats into 2 lanes going on by road, so you're narrowing from 4 down to 2. But if they had multiple washdowns along there, and I think the washdown should be used for flushing your engines and rinsing your trailers, not for washing your boats. So who's ever working the collecting the money should kind of police that to keep that moving. But you could put like 4 stations, 2 on each side, so you could have 4 people flushing and rinsing at the same time. That's my thoughts.
Awesome. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone?
I have one more if nobody else has anything.
Yeah, we got some more. I'll let you go again, but let's get everyone else. Want to jump up? Come on.
Hi, I'm Janet Marcus, 200. I am. 200 Kelwyn Circle. And I am reiterating what she's saying about how important it is for more things for dogs, that there aren't enough dog parks here there aren't enough parks here that are dog-friendly. And I'm hoping, because there is a hidden area there right now where people have taken their dogs for years and years and taught them how to fetch out in the water. And it's important. I've talked to a lot of dog owners about this, and I'm representing a lot that couldn't come to the meeting tonight because they all wanted to make sure there would be, or put in a word for having a dog beach that is kept there. In addition to, all the walking areas are wonderful. I think that's great. And if there were an area for an additional dog enclosure, that would be nice. And the other thing is, since LSVs, I know they're controversial, but they take up less space than a car. And a lot of people have them now. And are there going to be any spaces for them? Because it would take less space and you can get more vehicles in. And I don't know if I can add this. I was hoping also that Taylor Clement Park would become dog-friendly. So,
Mr. Mayor, do you mind if I clarify one thing for the
Jump
public?
on in.
Just 4 years ago, I think it was approximately, the council at that time ran a pilot program at that facility to see it with dogs on leash, and it was successful. They came back and voted it in as permit, so dogs on leash are currently allowed there. Council has the ability to change the rules in each location if they want to, so if they want it designated a dog beach, they can do that. But right now, it is in effect that the public can bring their dogs there.
Awesome. I did not know that. No? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, no?
Dog
Okay,
stations.
gotcha.
I think.
Dogs on leashes are
I think we
available
have
right
Dogs on leash on the beach down there, right.
Right,
Yeah,
good deal.
on both sides, we have
come in.
dog stations.
Where's that?
At this park currently.
At Matty Kelly,
You guys want to go? Yep, come on up. Button's already on, so just name and address.
All right, my name is Tammy Weidenhammer, and I live at 2004 98 Palms Boulevard. And I also agree with your comment about moving the paddleboarding area or paddle area. As an avid paddleboarder, I don't think that the paddle sports mix well with the boats going both ways, so.
Yeah.
my opinion.
Is there a way to put that on the pier as far as putting I know we don't really have a way, never mind, because that would take too long to get out there as far as holding the.
You're
yeah.
changing that, aren't you, to help switch out where the paddle boats are and the boats that are motorized from what Mr. Babby brought up earlier?
I have taken his comment down, take it back.
We'll do that.
Like 25 and 3.
Yep.
Flip them.
Got it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
Anything
you.
else? All right, thank you.
Next.
Oh, I'm liking this. We got some public comment tonight.
Yes.
Oh.
Heather Weidenhammer,
Pro
Nancy
dog.
Weidenhammer's granddaughter. Of course, I love dogs. I just wanted to add, I think there needs to be more dog-friendly places in Destin because there just really isn't anywhere. And dogs are the new children, so you kind of have to be more open to letting dogs go more places. But on-leash parks are great because then you're not running into the kids and your dogs are on the leash. So I think making this an on-leash park would be in
I
your
think
best
we're already pretty much in that mindset. It's just a matter of, are we going to specify a piece of that newer beach to make it to where the dogs can come off a leash to play in the water? Isn't that what you were talking about, Miss Nikki?
Either way, just as long, I just know that the current committee was talking about they would like an area to be dog banned, and I would say all
No.
the previous discussions in the years leading up to this were that the whole area was always intended to be dog friendly.
Correct.
And the previous Parks and Recreation Committee voted on that, and as I read in that agenda item,
2019.
took it to council, and had it approved.
So they would have access to the beach off
And the
leash.
water.
That would
Yep.
be great.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Small portion. Let's don't get too excited here.
Still part of it.
Yeah.
Next.
All right. How are we going to stop the rogue vessels?
What are we going to do?
All right. John Stevens, 4025 Indian Trail. Got a couple thoughts. So I see a lot of people wanting to come here by boat and use the park to hang out. So I'm not sure if you guys pay any thoughts into possibly putting some mooring balls out there and have it specifically to where it's for transient, not overnight mooring balls. Definitely more transient slips, non-overnight, non-commercial. Another thing I'd like to see is in the swim areas, what about having some swim platforms that kids can swim over to? Another thing along the shoreline, I'd love to see some live shoreline. Definitely work with the Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance to see about getting that to happen.
For bringing that up. Yeah.
Another thing, I attended a regional Coast Guard safety meeting, and they pushed hard on marking a law enforcement parking spot, make sure it's marked really good to show that there is going to be enforcement in that area.
I want a giant seal on the building.
Agreed. Another thing, you guys keep on talking about the washdown area. What about pitting the washdown area in where number 2 is, where that loop? That way it's kind of out of the way, and that way it won't impede the boat trailer traffic. And then last comment, maybe have a small playground for kids. So that's all I got.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hey, Jana.
Oh, man.
Oh, Lord.
I want to see a smile, too. Oh, how the tables have turned.
Chatham is a new father, or not
I do.
new father, again, another father. Yeah,
I have
another
a
baby.
3-week-old baby at the house, and yeah, it's bedtime for the big kids right now, so this was kind of a reasonable excuse to get out of the house. So, is this being recorded?
Can we strike that from the record?
Yeah. Chatham, Oregon, 339 Calhoun Avenue. One thing before we make significant changes to the parking lot, I would like to see data from the Parks Department on how often the current parking lot's at capacity. So not talking about the paved area of the concrete plant that we kind of just put together. I'm talking about the old existing parking. I would like to see how often it is at capacity, because I can tell you, from August through Memorial Day, it's hardly going to be at capacity at all. And so what I would hate to see is for us to sacrifice lots of green space, space for playground for kids, space for a dedicated off-leash dog park, whatever. I would hate to see us sacrifice that for a waterfront parking lot that sits empty 90% of the time, I think it will. And that's not to say that July's not going to be busy. I was jogging on, and I've got a photo, because I was thinking when this NERDA grant money comes through and we start building this, I knew there was kind of a push for adding parking. But you constantly see it, and it's empty. And on June 20th of this year, forget the cement property, just the existing parking lot was about 50% full at 10 a.m. And that's in June. That's in the middle of our peak season. So I would like to see the data on how often it is at capacity, and do we really need to increase it? And I would like to see us take at least a row or two of parking out, shift the cul-de-sac over, add a playground, more green space, because that'll be used 100% of the year, And so I would hate for us to have an empty waterfront parking lot. And also, y'all's grandmother, and they left.
They just walked out.
They had a wonderful grandmother, and she was sitting in that very seat. And my most memorable council meeting was when your grandma sat in the seats y'all were sitting in, and she was wearing a dog costume. And she was sick at the time. She was really sick, and it was right before she passed away, and she came up here, and I would be remiss without saying it, about how much she wanted there to be a dog park on this property. And that was the original intent, was this to be a park, not a parking lot. And I have no problem with increasing parking. I like the idea of parking on the other side of Beach Drive. I think that's great. Accommodating large vessels and trailers is cool if you can include it. But I would prioritize green space over what will be an empty parking lot most of the year. And I'm talking 90% of the year. So, but thanks for all y'all do.
Thank you.
And Chatham had a good point that a lot of times that overflow lot is full, and the lot itself in front of the ramp are not. Well, the problem is the design of the way to park, and you bring a trailer and a truck around, and you got somebody that parked from this spot over, so you got 3 spots that are empty because this guy parked cattywampus, if you want to say it. So I don't know if there's a way to monitor when they're parking to start the mornings off, if Wayne can make sure the people park properly in that first lot, so they don't leave 7 to 10 empty spaces, because then they're at such a diangle they can't get in there with another parking
That
vessel.
is one of the main priorities that those guys do. I've been there also, but when you come up there and one person has done that and he's gone, there's nothing you can do about it, and just, Now, what Chatham Morgan just said, I can get you the stats on what we have when I have a attendant there, but I will say probably less than 20 days, we have the numbers that are at capacity, which is over 100 boats. But you
Say that
figure,
again?
pardon me?
Been 20 days, a year or a month?
20 days a year,
A year. Okay.
That this thing's full.
That this thing's full.
yes.
All right. Good to know. All right.
Anyone else?
Anyone else? Seeing none? All right, one quick.
Mine's real quick.
Yep. Only because you're on a committee.
Last one, and just because I really just sort of discovered this while I was sitting here, or I would have done it earlier. One, in a comment in response to the comment of moving the washout station across the street, I would not be in favor of that at all. I encourage you to look at the wetland boundary and how close it comes to that parking lot. So one spill of any of that, and it's in the wetlands. My only other question is in regards to this number 4, these stone breakwaters. I would just want to know, again, if you look at the wetlands map right out from the existing pier, now it's not on there. You would have to go to the Florida wetlands map. But if you look right out from there, there is a protected wetland area that's right outside of there that is a deep water estuarine marine wetland. So just making sure that whatever the design of these stone breakways are in number 4, that we've considered that wetland there and how that wetland will be affected.
Nikki, can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
I've seen what you're talking about, and it's a, it's a tangled web of, I don't know if it's what, I think we should consult with the Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance on
And
this.
the whole permit's about that. So see, this is just, again, I was just looking at the wetlands map, so it's just a protected wetland.
Yeah, so
That's all.
what they've done, I know in Walton County, is they've made oyster, they've got like, reef bags that serve the same purpose, and they're great for our water.
And that's
So
great. I just wanted
I'd
to make sure it
recommend-
was considered. And again, if you go and review the original proposal, it is all, it completely tied in with the Choctawhatchee Bay Alliance and how we plan to work with them to accomplish every goal put forth in the proposal, so.
Thank you, Nikki, for bringing
Thank
all
you.
the past numbers and information up, especially about the dog park and what we wanted to
Sure,
do
yeah,
for
I've got,
2019.
plus, I've got much more minutes. I can point out every place we talked about it if you are concerned.
And then one
Thanks.
last comment to go on you, and I don't need you up here if you want to sit.
Okay.
So 428, and maybe it's a question you can answer now or bring back for the next council meeting, for that natural shoreline versus whatever 28 material is now, would that serve the same purpose? Because I know, there's a lot of studies going on about these living shorelines really providing even more land over time and really allowing it the sprawl of land coming back into the bay. So I don't know the requirements of what 28 is serving, but I would love to see that a living shoreline versus the revetments. What is it?
28 is just shoreline protection.
That's what I'm saying. So they're saying that you wouldn't be able to put barefoot, walk over it because of whatever.
Even if it's oyster shell.
But it wouldn't be oyster shells. If living shoreline would be grasses.
Yeah, and the permit says we will do living shoreline. That's exactly what it says we were intended to do.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I would love to see living shoreline. It would add land over time, let alone allow it to be more walkable on the water line. So that was just my last comment / something I would love to see is to make sure everywhere possible that we go living shoreline versus hard structures that just hyper erode at their edges. Well, seeing none, I think that concludes the workshop for the Joe's Bayou improvement, boat ramp, possibly dog park. I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you so much for your time and your comments today. Meeting adjourned.